welcome to our CuroNow Caregiver Circle. We're really glad you're here. These sessions are for people who are early in their caregiving journey, that stage where you feel like, I didn't even know the right questions yet, and I just know something is shifting. Today, we're talking about senior living and when to start planning, not in a crisis moment, but earlier when you still have time and choices. And this is part of our early waitlister thank you. We really appreciate you being here with us so early.
We're so happy to welcome Paul Fiscus today. Paul brings almost 30 years of leadership in senior living, and he's also been a primary caregiver for his own family. We invited Paul because families need steady, honest guidance without pressure or fear. Paul, we're so grateful that you're spending your time with us.
Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully we can help some folks.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Paul, let's jump right in. Can you share a little bit about your background in senior living and how you came into this work? And then once you get there, if you can layer on top of that, you've already walked this personally as a caregiver. And how did that change the way you see families going through these decisions?
Yeah, sure. Be happy to, Pat. I guess it really started when I was born. My father was a physician, so I've been in healthcare my entire life. But from the time we used to go after church and make rounds in the hospital with my dad. I was always interested in it, and I think it led me into it. Studied healthcare administration at the University of Illinois. Was lucky enough to get a leadership position within about 4 years out of college, and I've been doing this ever since I was a CNA in college. Leadership of some type or another on a senior living campus for almost 30 years. And absolutely love the interactions, the relationships, the families I've gotten to know, just everything, the staff that I've worked with, just everything about it was a wonderful career, and just stepped away recently last summer.
Fantastic. You've had a taste of retirement, but you're still very busy, and now we're roping you into this.
Yeah, and I think roping me in would be a bit of a strong statement. It was very, very easy for me. This is a great project you folks are working on. Happy to help. I think my experience in senior living really changed when I was in a leadership position and my parents began to age in a way that we could see that independent living in their home was probably not going to last much longer. And luckily, they agreed when we offered the idea that they could potentially move in to the campus that I was operating at the time. And sitting on both sides of the desk as a family member and as a leader in the industry really opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I think it changed the way that I led my team from then on. And it was another that I've done this work since I've lost my parents. Luckily, I was able to spend the last couple of years of my mom's life with her daily, and Dad's final 4 years daily. That was a blessing that you just cannot imagine when you're right in the middle of it. But
Yeah.
looking back on it, what a blessing.
That is a blessing. So when families first start to realize we might need more support at some point, kind of like when you went through this yourself, what do you usually see emotionally?
A couple of things. First of all, a little bit of shock, because potentially they didn't want to face the realities of it, and then waited a bit too long, and suddenly there was an event that shocked them into a decision that potentially they're kind of rushing through, scrambling around, trying to put some things together, both financially and from a care standpoint. The second thing we see is tremendous emotion. And if there are multiple children of the loved one or loved ones, sometimes there are emotional dynamics that I don't want to say cloud the picture or create resistance or turmoil, but let's face it, the realities are most people think differently about any situation that comes in front of them, especially when it becomes an emotional situation. So I think that's what we see the most is the emotion, sometimes the rush into a decision that we didn't want to make, the potential beginnings of early grief already happening, which clouds judgment sometimes as well. But that's what we've been here for in senior living. That's one of the things I loved about the business.
Yeah, that's a great segue, Paul, because not every family has a family member with your kind of experience, right? So we hear, when we talk to families, we hear a lot of, I don't want to overreact too long till there's a crisis, right? So from your experience, what are some of these early signs that it would be a good time to at least start exploring options besides independent living?
I think a good time, it's subtle. Sometimes it's a very subtle hint that you'll get. Sometimes it might be a collaborative effort at a holiday when the siblings are all together with mom and dad, or mom or dad for the first time in a while. I think, I don't want to say that there's ever a time that's too soon to overreact. Here's why I say that. There's no practice for this, and I'm speaking to anyone that takes a look at this video. There's no practice for this. Please do not be too hard on yourself. If you have to stop and rethink and start over and reconnect with some people, reconnect with experts, please give yourself the time to do that, because we're going to go through this one time as the children or the significant other of a very important person at a very important time in their life. So overreacting, I don't even know that that's part of my discussion. I don't know that you can overreact. This is very significant. It's very important, but please don't put too much pressure on yourself that we have to make it perfect and that we were really ready for this because we had some sort of practice for it, because it's just not there.
Yeah, that's great. Like, can you think about, so if proactive planning, which is what you're talking about, just proactively start learning, start exploring, start planning. If that were a mindset and not a checklist of to-dos, what would that look like for families?
I think the mindset starts with safety. If there is any beginnings of what I would call fear, and that's a strong word, but let's say concern about safety risk, either in the home, driving a car, in bad weather, nutrition, medication management, is it going correctly? If there are some risks beginning to pop up that are going to create a potential safety risk for your loved one, I would not wait any longer than at all possible. Because here's the thing, you want to have conversations with the loved ones, whether they're your parents or some other relation, or even if they're just a very, very important person in your life. You want to have these conversations when they can have them with you at a cognitive level that we can brainstorm and we can solve, come up with solutions together. Because I think it's important that the mindset is, I'm concerned about your safety, and we're going to put that at the forefront. And I know it's difficult to convince folks sometimes. Everybody that watches this is probably going through a little bit of that at this time. I can't stress enough how important it is to have an open and honest relationship with these folks, and you probably do. But sometimes there's also layers involved there of things. So that would be the bit of a drawn out answer, Rukmini, but I think that it's very important that safety is the number one priority.
Oh, I love that, especially the focus around safety. Now you're just talking about the different layers or the levels of care. So there's a lot of complexity in there. So maybe you can help us with the simple explanations. So let's break down the part that confuses almost everyone at first. Can you walk us through the basic levels of care in plain language? independent living, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. This is it's extremely important. Some of the reason there are so many levels of care has something to do with marketing and something to do with the sales portion of the way senior living is set up. But some of it is actually based on what is appropriate. And so I would say independent living is I would define it in the two states I've worked in Illinois and Wisconsin. I would define it like this. It's a person who can manage their own medication safely. I want to make sure that I stress that. They might be driving a car. They might not be driving a car. Both members of the couple are probably still cognitively fairly alert and oriented on a level of 90% or better, as if you want to rate it in a percentile scale. I think it's important also that independent living, when you shut the door to your unit or apartment, generally you're going to have some means of contacting staff in an emergency. It's some sort of a pendant system, a call system set up through the phones, something of that nature, right? But the expectation generally in independent living is that you will be safe behind that closed door for long periods of time without any need for staff to come unprompted and check on you. I hope that makes sense.
Yep.
Assisted living, boy, this is a wide array of things, but I think if I had to bullet point the things that would define assisted living, there are two separate levels in the state of Wisconsin. A residential care apartment complex is a more independent level in general.
Mm-hmm.
There's a limit to the number of hours of care that you can have on a weekly basis from all disciplines. Now, the other one is a little higher level of care and offers a bit more service, and I would say a bit more flexibility in the type of service that can be provided, and that's called a community-based residential facility. The acronyms are RCAC and CBRF. Not very many states have these separated levels like this, which I've always appreciated in Wisconsin. So RCAC is more independent. The CBRF level offers a bit more care right up to what you would call the threshold of skilled nursing facility care or nursing home care. So when a company hangs a sign outside the building that says assisted living, it can mean a lot of things.
Mm.
The other bullet point that I wrote down before we started today was care package. The care package in assisted living can be from A to Z, soup to nuts. It is a wide ranging variety, depending on the corporation, depending on whether it's a not-for-profit or a standalone community. What their care package entails is very important for folks to really scrutinize, because generally there are a la carte services that are going to cost a particular amount if they are added to your loved one's care package. And there are usually basic care levels that include X, Y, and Z, and then the next care level includes A, B, and Z, and the next care level may include D, E, and F, or some combination thereof. What I'm trying to say succinctly is that assisted living is the broadest level of care that's the least understood, and you really have to drill down on each individual facility and what that care package really entails and what the additional a la carte costs are going to be as time goes on. So I hope that helps.
That does help. And so I think that's what we were getting at before when we talked about what people get most confused regarding assisted living, right? It's the packages.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that that's one of the things people think. If it says assisted living, well, there's two things actually. Some people think, well, that's the home. That's the home. We're going to the home. Yes, assisted living has become the new quote unquote long-term care these days, but it is so broad And people get so confused thinking that mom or dad is going to have an RN in the building 24/7 supervising their care with a doctor on call. This is simply not the case. And in many cases, anyway, you're going to have an RN that's on call generally 24/7. Are they going to be in the building 24/7? No, they're not in almost every case. So you really have to study, and you really have to hear what that care package is going to include, and does it cover what my mom or dad needs to remain safe.
Mm-hmm.
And assisted living means that we as families are also going to assist with the living. Please, anyone that's hearing this, you will have to supplement. You will become a much bigger partner than what maybe you thought you would be in making sure that little things like going to appointments, certain favorite items that they like, toiletries, etc. Other little things, the visits, the initial idea that people think, well, they're going to take care of everything my mom needs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's not necessarily the case. Some of the companionship might even have to be supplemented by family in certain cases. Because remember, in skilled nursing facility care, meaning nursing home care, we're going to every so often, and it's going to be like a rhythm. We're going to check on you. We're going to make sure that we remind you that it's almost time for supper, or hey, today's your bath day. You know, some of that does go on in assisted living, but some of it also has to be supplemented by the families. So keep that in mind as well.
Thank you. And can you touch upon memory care just a bit?
Yeah, memory care is an exploding level of care within our society, sadly. But we're learning more about it. And over the past 20 years or so, memory care facilities are being built exclusively for the memory care population, meaning the physical structure and the way that the neighborhoods or the wings are laid out. The care packages are also much different in many cases, and the staff training is different. I don't want to say significantly. I can't say that it's the same training for every facility. Some companies train differently. Some companies train according to what national recommendations are. Some don't. Some have their own packages, use their own consultants, in-house people. Memory care, in my opinion, is a great option when maybe the loved one is in assisted living and we see that the inevitable cognitive decline is increasing. We see memory becoming worse, but we also see other things. We see potentially a little bit of behavior that begins to occur that the person never exhibited in their life. Statements being made, seeking the exit, repetitive statements. There's a lot around memory care. And I know there are caregivers at home right now that are struggling with a loved one who has memory care needs. And
for sure,
our hearts go out to you. There is a tremendous level of patience required. I think memory care facilities are an excellent option if and when families simply cannot manage to keep their loved ones safe, to keep the nutrition going, potentially activities. Loved ones are burnt out. Caregiver burnout with memory care is as high as any other level of care in the nation. We see spouses who have gone beyond, above and beyond the call of duty, but we understand. We understand. I think sometimes memory care is as good for the spouse who was the caregiver as it is for the loved one who enters the memory care facility. They can regain some independence. They can regain some health. They can get some sleep. They can do some things that eventually will benefit the loved one who's in the memory care facility. And remember, most facilities do not prohibit or restrict visitation for the immediate family member. You hear about visiting hours. I just want to say that I've never restricted anyone from coming in, spending the night, not consistently or continuously, but spending the night when times were tough, spending all day, coming in at the crack of dawn. Whenever that resident in the memory care wing or neighborhood needed you, I had no problem. And most facilities don't. Because sometimes it brings peace to them, their minds. Oh, thank God you're here. You know, I've been waiting for you all day. So
Right.
memory care is the most dynamic level of care, I think, in senior living right now. I think it's also the one that is the most difficult for not only the spousal caregiver, but also for the children.
You bring up a great point there, because I know families, and I've spoken to recently, where they moved their parents multiple times. So I have one last question on this topic too, because I think it's important to ask you, what's one common misconception that you wish people would stop believing about assisted living or skilled nursing?
That there's not enough staff. I really want to caution you, because somebody might be sitting there and they heard me say that and they're like, yeah, well, we know better than that because X, Y, and Z, or I've seen the prime examples of it. Yes, folks, there are facilities that are understaffed. There are facilities that are not as staffed with enough of their own team, and they're utilizing contractor agency staff in a way that does affect care. But I think by and large, the staff who work in senior living facilities across the levels of care are there for the right reasons. They're trying hard. As I mentioned before, whatever the family can do, whatever the kids can do to help supplement what the staff are doing, the better the experience is going to be overall. We understand that it's a lot of money. And I've heard, I can't tell you how many times, well, we pay all this money so that you guys can do that. I understand. And we do need to hold up the end of the bargain that the staff is required, educated, trained, and expected to do. But please understand that when the family jumps in and supports the staff, everybody becomes more comfortable and the loved one receives better care. I think one of the other common misconceptions is that this is so expensive. Why would we want to pay this kind of money? We've got to find another way to do this. So what happens is you piece something together where too many family members are involved, and at first they make the commitment emotionally and from a time standpoint and physically to be involved in the care of the loved one. So many times we see that being a temporary solution that people cannot sustain. But we don't want to pay the money. We don't want to pay the money. We want to pay the money. I would challenge you to look at the cost of most assisted livings, memory cares, independent livings, and I'll leave nursing home out of this because nursing home is a bit more expensive, of course. I would challenge folks to look at those other levels of care and compare it to a Disney hotel. If you stay at a Disney hotel and you add that up times 30 days, I'm telling you, assisted living memory care is a bargain for what you're getting if you look at the 24/7 operation, the meals, etc., that are all included. I think more than anything, what happens is I don't want to go. I just don't want to go. I don't want to go, and you can't make me go, and please don't make me go. And there's a lot of emotion around that, and I understand. But I think that would be the answer to the question. Those are the two big things that I look at.
Thank you for that.
This is a very important part, because what I'm hearing you talk about, Paul, is the partnership between the families and the facility. Because at the end of the day, this is a relationship. This person is part of a family. and the family is a unit, right? So that's very interesting. What are the biggest questions? Because part of this is families are probably going through this for the first time. And as you were saying, there's no practice. What are the biggest questions families don't realize they should be asking when they tour or research these communities?
Yeah,
we heard about the care plans. Of course, there's a pricing to it. We know those two parts of the equation, but what else should we ask about or look into?
I think one of the key questions is location. Okay, the location of the facility. Time and time again, I've heard family members or spouses of a loved one who's going to enter a community say something about, well, it's just 10 minutes down the road. It's very convenient for mom to get here. We really love that because mom can go and see dad every day. I want to challenge everyone who's listening to this. Please try not to utilize that as a part of your criteria. Please do your best to research and personally tour enough communities that if that community turns out to be a 45-minute drive for mom, that the family is willing to help mom with that drive on occasion or most of the time, because location does not make a good facility. If it's down the street, it could be one of the worst facilities or communities in the area. And of course, I wouldn't name any facilities or any communities that I would say that about, because I don't know the location of any of our families that might be watching today. The bottom line is location should not be at the top of your list. Convenience to you or the spouse is not a priority, in my opinion. What is a priority when you go tour the community, I believe, is two things. Are the staff having meaningful interactions with the residents on a consistent basis? Are the staff visible, present, out and about with the residents? What's the quality of food? And again, I've heard 1,000 times, oh, mom just hates the food. Oh boy, mom just really hates the food. Okay, I get it. But mom cleans her plate, is what I see. Okay, so again, understand that mom doesn't want to be there. Mom really doesn't want to be there, and there's lots of ways that mom will try to justify why she doesn't want to be there. And an easy one is, oh, I hate the food. But the food is important. And are specialized diets offered in assisted living? Some are, some aren't. And if mom has special needs, diabetic, low sodium, things of this nature, please make sure you research some of that and make sure the assisted living can accommodate that and is already accommodating that comfortably with other clients. I think one of the other things I see, cleanliness is really important, but I always walked around with the idea that what do I see, what do I hear, what do I feel, and what do I smell? Those four things are a pretty good barometer of how things are going. And I've heard people say, well, you should go on a Sunday afternoon in the middle of the afternoon when you know that management's not there and the staffing is just going to be whatever it is, so you can see how it really is in the building. That's not a bad idea, but also I like to see how management's interacting out there with residents from time to time as well. And you know what? Having the management there so that you can bend their ear a little bit, talk to them about the important stuff that's going on, maybe get a clear financial picture while you're there, because look, we only have so much time in our lives, and you want to be able to get a pretty good snapshot of how this facility is. But I would say those are the most important things. And then obviously look at mom and dad's grooming. Look at all the residents grooming. I look at that as a real indicator of resident care. Does mom wear the same clothes really often or for days in a row? Okay, well, if mom has the cognitive capacity that she might pull out the same shirt all the time, the staff should understand that. The staff should also know when it's time that maybe we should change our clothes. And then special events. Let's say you're going out for mom's birthday or you're going to church. I always like to see that the staff understands that this is an important thing and they were ready to go. And so I think sometimes when you tour a community, you'll see someone that's having a special occasion. If you're lucky enough to see that, watch how things go. Watch how special they make that resident feel, or not, and
Right.
and use that as a bit of a barometer as well.
I love that. Let's transition. We talked about location, but can we talk about some of the realities around cost and staffing? Specifically, what do you most want families to understand about the cost and the contracts before they make a decision?
Okay, two things about contracts, and then we can quickly move on from that. So contracts are set up in many different ways. If it's an independent living, please understand, sometimes the contracts commonly are set up to where there's an endowment or an amount of money that needs to be put down in order to secure a particular price or a particular apartment. And they'll tell you that, this money is there to maintain your mother or father's residence for the remainder of their life, no matter which level of care they move through in our campus. And these endowments are becoming less common because I believe they have less value. For me, I've always worked in communities where independent living, memory care assisted living, skilled nursing, it was all basically a day-to-day arrangement. Now, you might have a 30-day clause that you have to provide notice if the family and the resident make the decision to move out strictly on their own for their own reasons, and it wasn't about their care needs or anything else. That's going to be about the room and board. That's not going to be about the care level. You want to have a contract where the care level charge stops on the day that you discharge the facility. Whether the room and board goes on for another 30 days is part of the contract potentially. But you want that daily care charge to stop immediately, because most assisted living, even independent living, and certainly memory care contracts are going to have a room and board charge and then a daily care and service charge. And both of those combine to make the full daily charge that you pay. Okay, so I would watch out for those couple of things. I would never get involved with a contract that asks you for more than a 30-day out clause for anything. And if it's not a day-to-day for care and services, I would be a little wary of it. But Pat, remind me the second part of the question.
The second part of the question is, what do you want families to understand about costs and contracts before they make that decision? And we know, we've talked about the staffing as well.
Yeah, the staffing, I think, is very important. It's very important to understand that this workforce, the healthcare workforce, is as challenged as we've ever been in my career post-COVID. I'm not going to provide anything other than personal examples, because I can tell you that the folks who stuck it out on our teams in the facilities that I operated are as dedicated as anybody I've ever seen. And they love what they do, and they love the residents. One of the things that is bothering our industry now is certainly the media has turned our industry into kind of a tough place to be, not only for residents and families, but for the staff to come and work. And our workforce needs to be motivated to come into our facilities because they are a wonderful place to fill your heart with joy about helping people. But one of the clear indicators that we're in a tough spot right now is families should watch and ask this question directly to whoever they work with, whether it's a marketing person, a salesperson, a social worker, a management administrator, etc. Ask the question, are you using contract staff? And if so, what's the percentage of contract staff that you're utilizing in your facility? I think one of the key things that an app like CuroNow can help with are these simple questions that give you some real quick, all right, that's a yes, but that's a no. And we don't have a lot of time in our world. Mom and dad may be needing these services pretty soon. We can't mess around. When it's a no, it's a no. When it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. And if staffing doesn't feel right to you, this is another one of those things. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? What do you smell? And then ask the question, how much contract staff are you using? And is the percentage, I would say if the percentage is higher than 50%, that's a little bit of a red flag. But it is a reality in our industry. Contract staffing is being used fairly consistently in most levels of care. That doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It doesn't. But those are the things I would say about the realities of contracts and staffing.
Thank you. That's a good guideline.
Very helpful. How about we shift a little bit? We've talked a lot about the realities and the logic. Let's talk about the heavy emotions in this. And I know you've talked about there's resistance from the aging parents in going in. We understand that. Let's talk about the other side of the equation. How does the guilt show up for adult children?
Sometimes if there are multiple siblings, it shows up in conflict between the siblings. Other times it shows up in siblings who just check out. They just decide that I'm not going to help my other siblings do this. Sometimes it's difficult for a person like myself who sees this from the outside to determine why that is. But the other thing about guilt that you see is I feel like I didn't get enough time with dad to reconcile this, or dad and I haven't spoken in a while. Dad and I have never had a great relationship. I feel terrible about that now that all of a sudden, he's struggling to remember what he had for breakfast this morning. And, he messes up my name and he calls me my brother's name sometimes. But yet we weren't able to reconcile. My advice over the years for many, many, many families has been, forget the past, forget the reality orientation. Let's not try to orient to reality. No, I'm not Dave, Dad. I'm Don. Remember, I'm Don. I'm your second oldest. That at this point in time, that's not the important factor that we're looking to make sure that Dad's got to remember who I am. It's very difficult sometimes because it's heart-wrenching to see some of the faculties, not only mentally but physically, begin to diminish in a person that was maybe, they were a godlike figure to you in your life. They were your mentor. They did everything for you, right? I think some of the guilt comes in when, oh boy, look at the room they have. Look at what we've had to do. We've had to move them out of their home. They never wanted to leave their home. They told me to promise that you'd never move me out of my home. I think we all still have to say safety, 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 quality of life. Now, some people will think sitting in the chair in front of the window and looking out the window all day in my own home with no other social interaction is what I want and what it should be. But as soon as they get into a more social environment, they blossom. And suddenly they come out of a shell that they've been in for a while and they never even realized it. I think sometimes we have to take our guilt and we have to say, look, this is where we are today, and I'm going to have to be transparent with mom or dad, and we've got to have a heart to heart. And again, remember back a few minutes ago when I said, try to do this when their cognitive faculties are still at the level where we can do this as a discussion, and we came up with a solution together.
Oh, this was fantastic. I think this is a great place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time, your honesty, and your perspective. We're so grateful you're here sharing this with families of CuroNow. And to everyone who joined us today, this is exactly why we're building CuroNow, to help families start earlier, notice sooner, and feel less alone as these moments begin to show up. And we're really glad you are here with us today. And Paul, we can't wait to have you back. This is so great.
I appreciate it. The opportunity was enjoyable, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
I'm sure
Thank you so much, Paul.
You count on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.